All right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Grade School Media. I'm your host, Tony Ray. Like I always tell y'all before, we students of the game, so we always uncovering nostalgic content, actors, their careers. We're not doing no clickbait. We're not just trying to tell their whole personal business. But today we got a legend. I don't even. His resume is so crazy that last night I had a hard time like bringing this together. So we just gonna get started. Pooch Hall, man, what's going on?
Big Tone, what up, Playboy? Thanks for having me, brother.
Hey, man. So before we get started to the questions, I just got to get your reaction to the California wildfires. Just the whole situation behind it, and were you affected in any way, or your family or friends?
Well, yeah, I think the whole state of California was affected by it, and huge shout out to all the people who are going through it right now, who are homeless and people who lost loved ones. I live in Sherman Oaks, so we saw, fire trucks were on the ready and just on the go. It was like every 5 minutes you heard fire trucks. 'Cause I live in Sherman Oaks, and the air quality was so bad, bro, that my whole insides were burning. You know what I mean? So, like sometimes when they talk about people who, either pass along in fire situations, sometimes it's the smoke, inhalation. So, the air quality was bad. And like, I left my windows open just to hear the fire trucks, just in case anything jumped off. And then in the windowsills was just black soot. Ugh. So after that, we closed the windows, but I changed the filters in the house for the air conditioner because both my sons have bad allergies too, but it was burning for like 2-3 days. And I was like, man, I can only imagine just being in it, like with the fire, with the soot, and then people coming home to no home.
Yeah. We definitely want to send our prayers out. There's a lot of resources out here. The Red Cross has been out here helping.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just want to start with that and show love. We California strong. We sticking together. So prayers up to everybody and involved. But let's get started, man. On a positive note. Now, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Were you born in Brockton?
Brockton, Mass.
Massachusetts. Tell me about that. Tell me about just the life growing up as a kid and family dynamic.
I grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts. Speaking of Massachusetts, I'm repping Tom Brady right now, the GOAT. It's a tough city, man. It's a tough city, and I grew up on the east side, and we have a slogan for our city. It's called the City of Champions, and Brockton is home of two famous fighters, heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano, which my high school was named after him, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, super middleweight champion. Yeah. Everyone who knows boxing knows Marvin. And he was trained by the Petronelli brothers. Rest in peace to all three of them, Goody, Pat, and Marvin. And I fought out of Petronelli's brothers stable. Won Southern New England Golden Gloves champ.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, bro. So like Brockton is a city that we're fighters. Whether you literally do it or you're fighting to take care of your family, get a good job, get out the hood, trying to help the city just get better because there's some bad parts out there.
What was like the family dynamic? Mom, dad, siblings?
Yeah, it was in the beginning it was my brother, my sister, my mom and dad and I, and then, my parents got divorced. And my sister was older, and she was my half sister, but I don't call her my half sister. She's like my sister. So that's because when I was born, that's who I grew up with.
Yeah.
But her family lived in Boston, like her father, we had the same mom. And then my dad, I grew up in Brockton, and, I just grew up in Brockton right into boxing because like my dad was a trainer. And, my dad, grew up in Florida from Clearwater, but a lot of my family was from St. Augustine and Tampa. But my father relocated, Northeast, and he was a dad. He worked construction. He was military, and he was that dad who wanted to give us a good lifestyle. He didn't want us growing up in the hood. Like, he was like, nah, my kids aren't growing up in the hood, and he busted his ass. And then he also was like, you know, as far as growing up, I want you guys to not be pushovers. You know, I want you guys to be able to handle yourselves in the street if it comes to you. And I just grew up in the gym, you know, learning to throw those things.
That was my next question. Like, what were you into junior high and high school? So I'm like, now that you say you were into is that what you were doing as a kid, boxing?
I was between football and boxing. Yeah,
Okay.
I boxed and played football my whole life. So, you know, when one wasn't going, the other one was.
So as a kid, junior high to high school, it was football, boxing. Where was theater in there anywhere, or acting?
Oh man, the world is a stage, bruh. So I went to Brockton High. So my first 2 years, I went to the school called Cardinal Spellman, also in Brockton. Shout out to my Cardinal Spellman peeps. I talked to a lot of my friends from high school still too.
That's what's up.
And I ended up going to Brockton High because, you know, Catholic school was real strict, and there was an incident that happened at a school dance, and a friend of mine, Andy Barrows, got into a fight. He went there as a freshman and then left, and then he was going to Brockton High. So there was a dance sophomore year. I brought him, and he got into some mess. And then because I brought him, I got in some trouble for bringing him. And then they wanted to suspend me. And my dad was just like, nah, I'm just going to have you go to Brockton High. It's a better school for me, in a sense. Not that, you know, I was out causing trouble, because my dad was scarier than anything out in the street. Let's just keep it 100. And, you know, my dad didn't like how the situation happened at Cardinal Spellman. So I ended up going to Brockton High, and Brockton High was just one of the biggest schools, huge sports and athletic program. And one of my best friends is, you know, superstar football player, Lamar Lee, who I still talk to this day. Bunch of cats I'm still friends with. Tracker and track.
So you were just an athletic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up because growing up in Brockton, Tone, especially for a lot of the black, you know, students and stuff, athletics was a way out, per se. And I don't want to say, oh, it's easy for us, but when you athletic and you have, you know, talent, you can go somewhere with that. And that was one thing that my father used to tell me. He says, like, whatever you do, be the best at it. Don't half-ass nothing. And, you know, between football and boxing, you know, I concentrated on boxing, and my dad was just really, really good, and, you know, and I was good. So the one thing that I tell people all the time is, like, you don't play boxing, and because you get killed in there, man.
Yeah.
And so I probably had, so I'm 23-0 as an amateur, but I've had like 100 fights, man. And
so what age did you start? Because I know you say you play football and boxing. So what age did boxing start? Like,
really start?
Yeah.
It definitely started in high school.
Okay.
Where probably my sophomore, junior year, and then senior year. So it was, you know, track, boxing. I stopped playing football probably around sophomore year, because I played football at Cardinal Spellman. Then I went to Brockton High, ran track, and then got into just focused in on boxing. You know, our mascot for our school is called the Brockton Boxers. And
ironic.
Yeah, it's and our stadium, our football stadium, is Marciano Stadium, named after Rocky Marciano. So you go to Brockton High, bro, you don't go there to lose or to half step.
That's a name you gotta,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta rep, bro.
Um, so high school, you sophomore year, you focusing on boxing. So where does college come into play as far because you're athletic? So did you get a
Mhm.
scholarship in track, or did you get an opportunity with boxing, and you just kind of took that path, or how did college
It
go after
it
high school?
so before let me see. Before college, there was a family incident that happened because I got into a bad fight in high school, and I ended up it went really bad, and then my father ended up going to prison, ended up going to jail, and then I ended up moving in with my mom, and when he got out, like so I was going hard in boxing, and he got out, and then I won Golden Gloves, and then with school, I wanted to play football again, so I ended up going to UMass Dartmouth um, through this program called College Now, and they, walked on as a football player, and then played. I played so sophomore year I played because I had to sit out, and they didn't encourage. So College Now is a program that they didn't encourage you playing sports. They wanted you to concentrate on school, and being in college and stuff, like, because I also went to community college before I went to UMass Dartmouth, and I was working, and then I wanted to get back in school. So, because I wanted to play football. And so ended up playing football. And then my junior year, I got hurt. My junior year got hurt, but at the same time I got hurt, I fell into the acting game as far as theater and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's kind of how all that happened, because I was like, am I going to really play in the league?
Well, I want to rewind too because I'm
Yeah.
like the 2 years in community college makes sense. So
No, only 1 year.
1
Only
year.
1 year in community college.
Okay. So because I'm saying at 20 years old, you won the Golden Gloves. So is that right? 20 years old?
No. 18. I don't know if the math is right on those, because I won it in high school. I won in high school as a senior.
Okay. The New England Golden Gloves for boxing?
Yeah, 90 what year?
4?
Yeah. So okay. It's been so wow, bro. It's been so long, man.
Because I'm a big boxing fan, so I do got a few boxing questions. Like,
Yeah.
what was the process of you like? Okay, we all can like throw a punch or throw a jab, but you learning to throw a jab and box and get comfortable with. How long did that take you?
Oh my God, bro.
Were you like, okay, I'm technical with it now. I'm nice.
Well, so it's like with anything, Tony. Like, you'll learn it, and then until you actually compete, you don't know how good you are. There's dudes who will go into the YMCA or to LA Fitness and hit a bag for a week straight and think they can fight, or because I grew up in a tough city or whatever, I can fight. Fighting and boxing or any type of skilled fighting is an art that you got to put time in. So my dad had me fighting when I was young, man. Like, that was one thing as soon as I could learn how to walk, man, because I got tons of pictures of me in the gym when I was little and sparring with other little kids. And so I was like headgear. I was constantly involved in that stuff, and my dad was showing me stuff. And then when it really got serious, that's when my dad's like, okay, we're going to really, really, we're going to really focus in on this. So like with boxing, it's like it's like riding a bike. You just got to keep doing it, but you're learning it properly. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can see a person doing all types of tricks on a bike and riding with no hands, riding with no feet, or doing bunny hops or jumping off. Like, you got to learn the basics first. You got to learn how to just keep the bike up and pedal without falling down. And so with boxing, you got to learn your jab, you got to learn your cross, you got to learn your hooks, you got to learn your uppercuts, you got to learn your overhands, you got to learn just looping punch. You got to learn all of that, and then you got to put it all together. Then you got to work on your defense, and you put it all together. You just repetitive, and then you give it a shot and go in there. Because some dudes will learn, go into a ring, get popped good, and be like, I don't want never again. It's different.
So
bro.
you say your dad trained you?
My dad trained me.
So how long did he have to train you before you had your first amateur fight?
Oh shoot. My dad was training me. Like I was fighting little too.
Okay.
Especially in
Junior Golden, was it?
No. Oh my God. Like I just found in North Carolina I fought in North Carolina.
I forgot the name, but I know it was real big.
I fought in Raleigh, Durham. Matter of fact, the gym that I fought out of was owned by this guy his name was, I think, Trucker.
Well, y'all probably fought at the Durham Armory, huh?
Bro.
It was so long ago, huh?
I fought at schools. I fought in schools, churches,
ballrooms,
armories.
Yeah.
I never fought at barrooms, but I fought at schools, churches, and armories. But I don't ever remember. I don't remember fighting in a bar in North Carolina.
Okay.
But I fought at. There would be, like, let's say you had you ever heard of VFW? Like, okay, VFW would be like a lounge where they would have a dance floor over here, or they would throw parties or something, and then you go through a door through the kitchen, and then there's a bar over there, and they would set up a ring, and man, yeah, bro.
So,
but my dad had me boxing young.
I want to get because I have so many boxing. Last one though, like what was your record
as a
your
little
amateur
kid?
Yeah, well, just your total amateur record.
23 and 0 as an amateur.
No losses.
No losses.
Wow. What? Okay.
The novice, and then you go to open.
Okay.
So you go to open. I know now, bro. I'm seeing cats is fighting with no headgear now.
Yeah.
I was always headgear.
That's what amateurs is headgear, right?
I see amateur with no headgear now. I think I don't know, because so when I started fighting again when I was on Ray Donovan, I was seeing fights, or they would have certain fights that we would be looking at on the TV or something, and then I saw people without headgear, and I'm like, "Is this pro?" And they go, "No, it's amateur." I'm like,
"My bad." So last question.
No, you good, fam.
So 23 and 0.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm mixed into 23 and 0, but then you got hurt playing football. How does that intertwine, and why did you not pursue boxing if you were 23 and 0, the amateurs? Like what?
My dad. Okay, so because I'm looking at the timeline, my dad went to prison, bro.
Okay,
and so not having him in my corner, not having him in my corner, it felt empty, and so when I would visit him, he would say, he said, get in school, play football if that's what you want to do. So my dad, he shot someone, because I got into a real bad fight, and I went home, got my dad, and my dad came back with a gun and shot at the dude. So, yeah, I'm giving you the fragmented.
Yeah,
that's like, I mean, so as you're trying to follow my story, as we're jumping around, there is a major part of my life that was this, because when my parents got divorced, I ended up staying with my dad because my mother was an alcoholic, and my dad got custody of us, and we lived with my dad. And my sister was older, out of the house at this point. But my little brother and I, we lived with my dad. And it was, growing up with a father, like I don't recommend, I don't recommend not a 2-family household. You know what I mean? Because it has its pros and it has its cons. But I feel it can mess with the dynamic with your children, based off of how they approach, the world and stuff like that. And both my parents have passed. My dad, He passed away last year. I think.
Rest in peace, Pops.
Thank you, man. My mom's been gone 16 years, but I also know that when the household's toxic, that's also not good for kids. And you know, people grow out of love or they parent differently. And with my parents, my like I said, my mother drank. My father didn't drink at all. But between the fighting that they did, my mom's drinking increased. But my dad was also he didn't beat my mom or anything like that, but he could be verbally mentally abusive. You know what I'm saying?
So because this is a deep subject. So like everything you've been through, you have a career now and success.
Yeah.
How do you how often do you think about your parents and how do you deal with their loss? And you know, you have success in your life now and you got things going on, but how often how do you deal with that? Because again, like with grade school media, I like to ask questions like that. So, you know, other people that might lose their parents in the future, especially me, I'm asking for myself, but
Sure.
how do you deal with that? How do you
both of your parents are with us
still
yeah.
right now? Yeah.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Embrace all feelings. Okay. Sometimes I feel that we come up and we're just supposed to be happy. Yeah, well, we're supposed to be happy, absolutely. But guess what? We're human and we go through things. You may be having an off day and it's okay to not be okay. You understand? So when people say, "Hey, Tone, you good? What's up? You all right?" Yeah, but I'm just tired. But as men, especially as black men, we'll be like, "Yeah, I'm cool."
I'm straight.
But we could really be going through something, whether it's financial, a breakup, your dog died, you just, man, I'm having issues at work, or I can't seem to just catch a break. Like, you got to talk about those feelings as opposed to suppressing them. That's just my opinion. I'm only speaking for me. And what I found is those feelings, when you share them with somebody, chances are there's something that you may get from someone that can unlock something within you where you're like, "Oh man, I didn't even know that." And then it can help you, or you can be taken off a destructive path just because you're in your emotions and you're angry and someone triggers you and then you fly off the handle, and then next thing you know, something, knock on wood, God forbid, something bad happens or what have you, that they could care less about what you going through. You did this.
Yeah.
The consequences, you see what I'm saying? And I think sometimes we try to, and people who lack accountability are like, "Well, my boss is an asshole and I was supposed to get a raise and I didn't get it, and da 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 da. And then my dog died." And it's like certain people is like, "Well, cry me a river. No one told you to go shoot up that school, or no one told you to go road rage and beat up that person," whatever. You see what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, if you aren't in control of self, chances are you can lose yourself and then do something to where nobody cares about if your parents died, or I don't care what you're going through. This is what you did, so now you got to face the music. You see what I'm saying? So for me, I used a lot of my emotions and I put into my work. Like, my mom died my second season on the game when my mother died. And she's been gone for 16 years. And I remember I was on set and and she had died, and I was still kind of like processing it. And I hadn't had my breakdown yet. I still haven't had my breakdown about my dad. And my dad was my dad was October. He passed in November.
Of last year?
Yeah.
Just recently.
It's recent, bro.
Oh,
And
sorry about that.
no, it's all good. And so, but when my mother passed, I was like on the set of the game, but she was also a diabetic. She was a diabetic, and she was in a nursing facility. And so this is a lot of things in which I've experienced that I put into my work, but then I had my breakdown. Like my casting director, Suzanne Goddard Smythe, asked me when I was at the craft service table, and she's like, oh, and she came and gave me love. She said, I understand your mom died. She said, just know that, she gave birth to, a wonderful son that is touching like the heart of the people right now, and with his work and his she said some beautiful words, and bro, I just let loose. I just cried. She gave me the tightest hug. I think she had to change her shirt because I cried so hard on her thing. But when it finally hits you, and you don't know when it hits you, but losing a mom or a dad is tough.
Would you say that your career success make it a little easier?
How do you mean?
As far as mentally dealing with it in your head, the emotions that you don't tell people, is it easier knowing that, okay, and this hurt me that I lost my parents, but what I'm doing and I'm touching the people, like people say you're touching the people, maybe that makes it a little easier for you to deal with it, I guess, or no?
Well, I mean, I'm sure for anyone on how they process pain or loss or whatever emotions that people go through, because like we as individuals can't tell a person how to feel.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? We can't say, hey, like, you didn't even like have a relationship with your mom. Like, what are you getting upset about? That's
you
not
can't tell nobody how to grieve.
Yeah, no, hell no. But sometimes people feel that they can, or sometimes people feel they know more, or I didn't do that when it happened to me. I was just like, well, I'm not you, you're not me.
Yeah.
And so however people process emotions, and you see, in the entertainment industry as artists, whether you're an actor or a singer, and especially when you have a lot of singers who create hits, because they're digging deep within themselves to tell a story with their song or their music. Me playing a character, a lot of times there's similarities within the script, within the material, that can take me back to, oh, I remember this, like sense memory. I remember that as a kid. I remember this with my mom. I remember this with my dad. This reminds me of my dog. This reminds me of this one time I was at school, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And you tap into that emotion, and you remember what that feeling was like, and then you bring it to the forefront in the material or the scene or the story you're telling within the scene, or the song that you're trying to tell, or poetry. And that's where I'm at now, because I'm also a sober man. So being sober, going 6 years.
Congrats.
Thank you,
bro. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
It's a big
Yeah.
deal,
My sober
for sure.
birthday is October 5th. So when I first got sober, and I know I'm jumping around, but it'll all come back to, people would say, oh my God, like you're a dope actor. And I experienced a lot growing up where, I saw my father shoot someone. You know what I mean? Been as a kid growing up as a fighter, like I'm, 15, 14 fighting grown men, but we the same weight class, or maybe a little bigger where we're training, but they got full on beards. So for me, fear wasn't something that you get over quickly. So it wasn't something that I brought to certain situations. So, as an actor, sometimes people get nervous. They'll be on set and there's like 20, 30 people looking at you, you know what I mean? Or what have you. I'm going to the ring and there's all people yelling and all types of wild, and you go in the ring, it's you and whoever.
Yeah.
It's me or you. And so doing that stuff young, you get over fear quicker than a person who's never done it, and now you got to do it in front of folks. So like going into an audition, or I'm actually working and I know what we're doing, and you surrender to the material. So then like I'm coming in with all these experiences prior to getting sober, and I thought it was good. Then I got sober, and then like a whole nother level presented itself to me, and all these other different emotions presented themselves. And then I was like, whoa. And so now, you'll hear people say, oh man, how do you guys like just cry in a scene or something like that?
Yeah.
And when you have good writing, when you have, shout out to all the writers out there who are, putting out great material, and also struggling with the fact that AI is
trying to take over.
Oh my God. You have writers who can create magic, and an actor can get that. And when you're experienced, you can lock in, and then all of a sudden the emotion of what the scene may call for, or what it may consist of, can hit you. And then all of a sudden your waterworks in a scene, because you're thinking about something that relates to this. And then when you're like there, you don't even have to force to cry. What you're saying in the scene will bring you there. And that's how talented, writers are, or actors are. Because I think sometimes you see an actor, you see Denzel go give a great monologue where he's crying, or Robert Downey Jr., or Tom Holland, or whoever, and you're like, man, they're such a great actor. But then it's like that before they got that scene, that somebody had to write that. You know what I mean? So all my emotions, they're almost like, let's say, I'll give you a quick analogy. We got to get ready for a war.
Okay.
And there's like a battalion, like thousands of soldiers walking up on us down the hill. So we got to go to the armory.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So you go to the armory, you open the door, and you look and be like, I got rocket launchers, grenades, M60s, Desert Eagles, bazookas, and you're looking at all your arsenal of weapons. And then you be like, boom, 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 whatever you need for that fight. So those emotions and sense memories are things that, for me, when I'm reading a script or something, that's what I do. I go into that arsenal of weaponry of emotions, and then I apply them to the scene. You know what I mean? And then
real life experiences.
That's facts, bro. Yeah, well, think about it, because here's the thing. You and I, right, as men, we may have some similarities in certain things we might have experienced growing up or what have you, but then you have yours, I have mine. And what makes it fascinating is, for me, I respect anybody's hustle, and it's not my place to judge you or judge a person, because, I have, my journey that I went through, that everything that I did wasn't on the up and up, and, had to get myself together, especially becoming sober, that certain choices that you do will dictate the outcome of, how your life can go and be, and or someone else's. So, one of these things that I always say, and my dad's always telling me, dad always told me, he's just like, do everything with class. and always make sure you're putting your best foot forward. And there's a lot of strength and weight to that I try to give to my kids, because I've made the wrong choice. Okay? So when you make the wrong choice, here's the outcome, and then there's consequences that come with that. Now, depending on what that is, you can either stay there, or you can be like, this isn't me. Let me fix this. Let me do what's right, and let me get back on that track. You see what I'm saying? And I'm very fortunate as an actor that I get to work out those emotions within scenes to be expressive and to get certain things out. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. I always wondered that. You answered the question without me even asking, because from a fan's perspective, when we watching a TV show or a movie and you see an actor crying or actress crying, it's like, I wonder if those are fake tears, or they spray water on their face, or this and that. We think about that stuff. So you just saying that, it's like, wow. Like,
well, bro, I mean, there are some people who can just turn it on. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? But for me, as an actor, nothing I do is fake. Like, I love acting so much that I've been blessed to be in this position to give you guys entertainment. It's the same thing as you're listening to a musical artist. Why? I'll give you an example. You know, Prince and Michael, okay? Those guys were not only artists, they were like geniuses. And I had the pleasure of meeting Prince, and then, you know, I saw Michael Jackson in person, like, and their aura, you understood why they were who they were and how passionate that they were about their music, that they when you're talented, when you're blessed with talent and you know it, but not from a narcissistic perspective, but like, I love touching people with my work. And when people say, Pooch, oh my God, like that scene, or like, you got me through senior year in college, or man, we couldn't wait to watch the game, or like, you and Ray Donovan, or you in this, or I just saw you in that. When people recognize you for your work, that's my validation that I'm doing something right, and or, hey, keep up the good work, per se. That's why I really think it's important to always say thank you to the fans, and to, if you can, give them time or some acknowledgement, because if it weren't for the fans, a lot of us wouldn't be where we're at.
That's a fact.
You dig what I'm saying?
That's a fact.
They're important and a part of the industry, because, you know, there are people who say, I don't even want to be an actor or a singer. I just like listening or watching because of what have you. I love saving lives. I love research. You know what I'm saying? Each person's born with a talent. What you choose to do is on you. And it's not my place to say, oh, I'm an actor, I'm better than you. No, because each person's necessary.
Everybody brings something to the table.
Yeah, everyone brings something to the table. As long as you aren't hurting folks, you know, doing evil, or, you know, trying to be on that right side of God or something, like, I think you're doing your part. You know what I mean? But I know as an actor, man, my emotions and a lot of the things in which I've gone through come through my work, and I'm learning. I'm constantly learning. And I'm learning from other actors too, because I'm going to tell you right now, you know, Tia Mowry made me better. PJ Byrne made me better. John Voight made me better. Liev Schreiber. Like, I've worked with so many heavy hitters that made me better, that I learned from. You see what I'm saying? And also, don't get it twisted, going back to just sidestepping back to being a fighter. Don't think for a second I didn't get my bell rung or my nose broke a few times.
Yeah.
You understand? And I've had my nose broke.
They hit 23 and 0 and think,
Come on, bro. So real quick. So Goody Petronelli said to me one day, they're doing a movie on him too. Goody Petronelli. He said to me one day, he goes, what is a guarantee in boxing when you step through the rope?
Guaranteed to get hit.
Yeah, I said, well, so he said, so that's what he said to me. So my answer was, I said, well, we're going to fight. He said, yeah, you're going to fight. He says, but you're going to get hit. Okay? So as a fighter, when you get over the fact that you're going to get hit, then you can concentrate on your combos and all your whatchamacallit. No fighter who's fighting is walking through the rope thinking, oh, I'm not going to get hit. Now, I've seen Floyd Mayweather live. Now, my favorite fighters is Roy Jones, Muhammad Ali, and Mike Tyson. Okay? That's that. Well, you know, Mike and Roy is my era, but there's tons of other fighters. People say that Floyd's the greatest. Ali is my greatest. He's the greatest. That's why they call him the greatest. But Floyd is so special that he was the Michael Jordan of our era as far as fighters, or the Kobe Bryant of fighters is our era, to where that man can go 12 rounds without stopping, making cats miss. The mindset, the athleticism, the poise, the patience, and the reaction to be able to move how he does, and for 12 rounds, bro, the most rounds I've ever fought is probably a total of 7, and that's training. But when you compete, it's 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I never went as an amateur. You
don't
fight
do 12 rounds.
No, hell no. I've never. I think the most I've ever fought was, and that was like probably the best shape of my life, was 7 rounds. We would do a round robin.
You never thought about doing celebrity boxing?
No, and I tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because here's the thing. Shout out to those cats who's doing celebrity boxing. You know, I know Mike Tyson. That's my guy. I've done some celebrity stuff with Jake and Logan, Paul, and I have no problem with those cats, because what they've done is they've become the WWF of celebrity boxing villains, like, and they've turned it into a crazy major business, and I'm so like, bro, good for them. I salute those cats. And the thing about it is, people don't know those dudes. Those dudes are 2 of the funniest cats, man.
Yeah.
And what they've done, just like in wrestling, you got a good guy, you got a bad guy. And a lot of people like the bad guys, or they want to see the bad guys get beat. So Jake and Logan turned on this villain thing. They're some of the coolest cats, but they took on a character and made it to where people want to see them get their butts kicked. So they'll say, hey, I can't. Everyone's like, yo, go fight a real fighter. Go fight a real fighter. And it's like, they don't have to. Because at this point in time,
they've monetized boxing.
Bro, it's game over.
I've heard boxers say, "Oh, they're not real fighters," and then a year later, like, "Hey, I used to say they're not real fighters. Now they've changed
no, he
the
can
game."
fight. He can fight.
Yeah,
no, Jake and Logan can actually box. Okay, now I give them props. They can fight. They'll definitely beat a person who can't box.
Right, for sure.
You see what I'm saying? But people have said stuff to me like, you know, would you get in there? And the thing about it is, here's the thing. If you win, you're supposed to win, Pooch. You really fight.
Yeah.
But if you lose,
you got beat up.
It's over, bro. You become a meme. I ain't seen Nate, you know, since.
It's bad.
When you get knocked out.
That hurt my feelings. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, I didn't want to see that.
So
Nate Robinson.
You remember MTV, right?
Yeah.
So MTV was doing celebrity boxing before all the celebrity boxing.
I was young then, too.
Bro. So here's my point. So check this out. So I'm friends with Sticky Fingers.
Okay.
Okay. So they was doing a whole whatchamacallit. And so Sticky and I did a movie called Lift with Kerry Washington. That was one of my first movies. And Sticky had just did this MTV Rock and Jock weekend, right? So Sticky, oh God bless him. That's my guy. So they had this it was like rock versus rap boxing. So they had this white dude who just looked, this white dude, sloppy looking white dude in one corner. And then they had Sticky, and Sticky got all ripped up and stuff like this. And so Method Man and Redman was in his corner, right? And the white dude, so they were doing the interviews and stuff like a real boxing match. And the white dude was like, oh man, I don't know. I'm just gonna go in there and try to do my best, blah, 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 right? And so Method Man and Redman were hyping up Sticky, right? And so so Sticky, they have the fight, right? And then so Sticky comes out and he's throwing all these like haymakers and all these bombs. And the white dude's like trying to like kind of protect himself. But I'm watching. I said, he's moving a little different.
Yeah.
I said, and all of a sudden, he's moving a little different. And then Sticky had punched himself out, and this dude just dinged him up and knocked him out. And I was like, I said, I think that dude fought before. I said, I think he fought somewhere.
Yeah.
He looked kind of like a slob, but he can move well enough to where he beat up Sticky, because Sticky came in like kind of like a Mike Tyson, but with no boxing, no experience, and got knocked out. So we did this movie, right? We did this movie, and I said, I said, Sticky, bro, like what happened? He's like, oh man, I knew someone was gonna ask me. So he told me, he said, bro, he goes, I didn't even know what was happening. He said, Meth and Red came up to me and said, yo, Sticky, we got this fight set up for you to beat up this white boy. You're gonna go get, I don't know, some kind of prize or some shit, da-da-da-da, right? So Sticky's like, what are you talking about? Because what had happened was MTV, Meth and Red were super popular at the time. So they went to Meth and Red and said, we're putting this little exhibition boxing thing together, right? And you want to do it? And they said, nah. They said, nah, we won't fight. But Sticky did. So he said, we'll get my man Sticky. So they volunteered Sticky. And so Sticky got put on the spot with the camera on him. And he said, yeah, I'll do it. And he goes, then when I saw his fight, he's like, I'm gonna whoop his ass. And Sticky got beat, but he was going, they went to Method Man and Redman first, and they said no and volunteered him. So then when they put him on the spot, he said, I had to do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but that's how it goes, man. Like, you don't know what you're doing in there. You'll get hurt, bro. You get hurt.